This is a podcast of 98FM's Dublin Talks. Remember, catch the show live Monday to Friday at 10 a.m.
98FM's Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy.
98FM.
On Friday's programme, we spoke with a lady called Jackie, who's a heartbroken mum whose daughter, Nicole Fox Fenlon, took her own life last week after years of torment from bullies. Now, it's one of the saddest interviews I've ever done on this programme. It's an interview which has been listened to by nearly 250,000 people on our podcasts here at 98FM. Unbelievable amount of people. 250,000 people have listened to this interview. I want to kind of follow up on that and talk about bullying and the detrimental effects that bullying can have on people. During the interview on Friday, Jackie revealed that her daughter, nicknamed Coco, had been targeted online and in person on nights out where she was even burned with cigarettes at nightclubs, while rumours were spread about her sexual activity before she took her own life by hanging in their family home. It was a truly shocking interview. For those of you who didn't hear it, I want to play just a little extract of my conversation on Friday with that lady, Jackie, about the death of her 21-year-old daughter.
She was the most loving, caring, most beautiful daughter anyone could ever want. She was a little diva when she wanted. She was cheeky when she wanted. But the worst thing was she was too trusting. She thought people were her friends, and then they would just turn things around and use it all against her.
So when did you first learn that Coco was being bullied?
Well, from when she turned 18 and she started going out, into a nightclub. At the start things were okay, but it's just people were just, there was a certain person that Nicole, a certain girl that Nicole would have been best friends with, and this other girl didn't like that. She was jealous of their friendship, and she only became friends with Nicole so she could hang around with this person. But I don't even know what I'm saying. Everyone was just, I'm going to say, jealous of her. She was stunning and beautiful, and none of the girls like that. And Nicole would get a lot of boys over to her, and she liked hanging around with boys because she could actually talk to boys easier. So a lot of boys would talk to her and stuff, but a lot of girls don't like that. They were intimidated by her. And I got to one stage where Nicole used to go down and she'd say she'd come out of the toilet, and some girl would walk by and just elbow her right to the ground. And because of one particular person, that was so jealous of her, she started spreading, she'd get a bigger gang and she'd start spreading malicious rumours about her, but she'd get more on top and more on top, and it just escalated into huge.
What is your message? And like I said, Jackie, I'm so full of admiration only a couple of days after burying your daughter for you to have the strength to speak about this, because this is so important that this message gets out there. Yeah. That bullying people is not acceptable, is not a joke, is not funny, and can lead to somebody dying. What is your message to the people who picked on your daughter so relentlessly for all those years?
To the people that died, that picked on it, I hope they rot in hell. I hope they rot in hell. Do you know what, Adrian? I actually don't think that they like one particular person rang up and said and rang me and was saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and then there's things on Facebook about some of the people that bullied her putting Nicole and stuff and all. Like, hypocrites. I don't even know if they realise what they've done, to be honest. I hope they suffer. I hope they suffer as much as Nicole did. I do. I hope they suffer as much as she did.
Now, that's just an extract from the interview with Jackie on Friday. As I said, it's an interview that everybody's been talking about all weekend because it just really hit home. It just really grabbed an awful lot of you about the dangers of picking on somebody, the dangers of making somebody's life a misery. That young lady told her mother that just because she's smiling in photographs doesn't mean she's happy. And that's something that will always stick with me, because for an awful lot of people who are being bullied, who are being picked on, they present an outer image of being okay with life, but inside they're being eaten up. And we want to just talk about bullying and what can be done to prevent it, or can anything be done? I'll be talking to a woman in a couple of minutes who says this is a woman of a young teen bullied to death, and she's warned politicians that they'll have more blood on their hands. She's calling for cyber bullies to be held accountable for their actions. One of the things about that interview with Jackie the other day is that we deliberately didn't in any way identify any of the people who may have been involved in bullying this young woman before she died, because we want to see something being done. We want to, as we said, cyber bullies and people who bully people face to face need to be held accountable. These people killed that young girl. They're responsible for her death. Ciara, you have your son was badly bullied when he was 5, and
yeah, he was, Adrian. He was in junior infants in primary school.
And he said what words to you? This is unbelievable.
He told me that if he wasn't here anymore, they wouldn't be able to be mean to him,
and that he wanted to go to heaven.
Yeah,
a 5-year-old.
A 5-year-old.
So at 5, he was in what? Junior infants, right? So
yeah.
He just started school.
Yeah.
And already at just 5, I mean, I have to say my favourite memories of school was when I started school.
Yeah.
He was picked on by 1 or 2 or 3 or how many?
3 children from another class in the same year group.
3 children from another class?
In the same year group, yeah.
Wow. And in what way do they taunt him or pick on him?
It was brought to my attention first. His teacher called me in when I was picking him up in the October. So he was only in the school just over a month. And she said that he was acting up in the class and he was kind of showing off an awful lot to the other kids and trying to draw attention to himself. So I brought him home and he said that a boy in another class had said something to him, but he didn't want to tell me what it was.
Right.
So I said that to the teacher when she called. When I went back to talk to her again, like I said it to her that he said such and such is after passing a comment to him. And she blatantly disregarded what it said. She said, there's no child in the class by that name at all, so you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And your child is wrong. So right, okay, let it go a little bit. And he came home from school the following week and he said 3 of them had pushed him to the ground in the yard, kicked him between the legs, spat on him and called him an orphan.
And this was your 5-year-old child?
Yeah. They'd pushed him onto the ground in the schoolyard and kicked him between his legs, spat on him and called him an orphan because they'd found out that his dad's not involved, and he's never had a problem saying that to anyone. But they'd found that out, so they called him an orphan because his dad isn't around. And
these are other 5-year-old children that were picking on him?
They would have actually been younger than him at the time because his birthday is in August, so he'd only turned 5. So they would have been maybe 4.5.
My God, how does a 4-year-old even know what an orphan is?
I've no idea. But then they started to, the kids in his class kind of started to pick up on it then, and they'd come and question me, why is your son an orphan?
Really?
Yeah. It was horrible, and the school didn't believe me. Like, my mum came down to the school with me and everything.
So
And the school didn't believe what was happening.
your little boy got so upset with all of this bullying that he told you that he wanted to be in heaven.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Oh, it was heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking.
So how did you sort this out? How did you fix this?
Myself and my mum had 2 more meetings with his teacher. We had a meeting with the vice principal of the school, and the 2 of us turned around and basically said the next step was we were going to the Department of Education about it, if it wasn't solved.
And was it?
Oh, it was, yeah, it was. It took about 6 months. But it got to a point where his teacher was walking around the schoolyard holding his hand to make sure that he was okay, until she could see something happening to him in the yard.
So it was eventually sorted. Did he stay in that school or what?
Yeah, he's still there.
He's still there, and
he's still there. He's in 5th class now. Like.
He's in 5th, and is he? Did he quickly adapt and become happier because they left him alone, or was it?
No, it took him a long time. It took him a long time now. He still hates going to school now, but he got there eventually. Like, he's a happy, confident little boy now. Like, but it took him an awful long time to get around from it.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it took him a long, long time. Like, it got to the point where just before the Christmas that year, or just after Christmas, sorry, I was out shopping with my dad and my 2 sisters and him, and he saw one of the boys with his dad and ran from my sister to me and jumped into my arms and started shaking and crying because he was afraid of him.
And this is 5 or 6 years later?
No, this was when he was 5.
Oh, sorry. At the time, I see, yes.
Yeah.
He was that terrified of them?
Oh, he was terrified. Absolutely petrified of them, yeah.
Did you ever approach the parents?
I was very, very close, but I didn't want it to come back on him again, or worse. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want it to have an even more negative effect on him than it already was having. No, I'd seen them in the yard when I was picking him up loads of times, and I was really, really close to going and saying, like, he was on the same football team as one of them for a while.
In terms of the school, I mean, obviously I don't want to identify the school, but the way they handled it initially was to just not believe you.
Oh no, they didn't believe me, they didn't believe him. And it all went down to the fact that he got one of the names mixed up. He told me 3 names, and one of them was very slightly mixed up. And the teacher said, no, he's wrong. There is not a child in the class by that name.
Now, this is a 5-year-old, again, just to re-emphasise that we're talking about, who can't be expected to, get the name and precise spelling of another child's name. But the school's attitude was to pretty much dismiss...
Oh, completely brush it off, like. Completely brushed it off.
That in itself is shocking. So,
yeah,
they did eventually deal with it. The bullies did eventually leave your 5-year-old alone, and he has eventually, after all these years, built up his confidence that he is now, thank God, a confident little boy.
Yeah, yeah. And, like, he's nearly 12. Like, he's turning 12 in a few months. But it's taken him a long, long time to get to where he is now, like.
I've mentioned on this programme before that I was bullied as a teenager, and it took me years to get my own self-confidence back. So I can only imagine what it was like for a 5-year-old to be picked on. And wow,
like I was bullied as a teenager as well, so I do know what it's like, and I know how it feels. And that poor woman last week absolutely broke my heart. God love her. But there are still certain things that if I say them to him, he goes into a complete meltdown. Like, he can't be told. His worst one is, do you know, like, if he's messing and I could say to him, oh, would you ever just cop on? He flips the lid completely. You can't say that to him because one of the teachers said that to him.
Oh, really? So just that expression alone...
Yeah, I can't say to him, oh, would you ever just cop on, like.
Brings back the fact that he wasn't believed about what was happening to him.
Yeah, and he goes into a complete meltdown, even now. He'll go into a complete meltdown. Nobody can say that to him. You can't tell him to relax. You can't tell him to take it easy. Nothing. He goes ballistic, like.
Is there a way that we can stop this? Because I'm at a bit of a loss to know how we can stop children treating other children so badly and picking on them in this way.
To be honest, Adrian, like, they don't lick it off the ground. They learn that behaviour from somewhere. They have to. Like, no normal 4-year-old child or no 4-year-old child living in a happy, relaxed house is going to push another child to the ground and kick him between his legs. They're learning the behaviour from somewhere. I have 2 sisters and a brother, and we were always brought up, you respect everybody. Doesn't matter where they're from, what they do, you respect everybody. And that's the way my son is being brought up.
In terms of, I have to say, the way the school treated you and your child in that case is just outrageous.
It was disgraceful.
A lot of people, in fact, I'm going to be talking to a call in a couple of minutes, who believes that the way to deal with this is to deal with it yourself. Rather than relying on the school, go and tackle the parents yourself. Is that the answer? I don't know.
I was very, very close. Like, I was literally the next day, before the school rang me, like, I was the next day, I was going to the parents and I was going to get the 3 of them that were picking the kids up and say, listen, this is what's happening. This is what my son has said to me. And I want it sorted now. And if you don't sort it, I will go to the guards. Because your child is assaulting my child in the schoolyard and making him feel afraid to go to school.
Okay, so you were one day away from...
I was, yeah, literally, yeah.
From dealing with it yourself.
And my mum was the same years ago. Like, when I was being bullied, my sister was bullied as well. And my mum actually drove over and confronted the bullies in the secondary school that were bullying my sister.
Again, unfortunately, that's a big risk for a parent to take because, you just said they don't lick it off a stone.
Yeah, I know.
You could be faced with parents prosecuting you for touching their child. Ellie, you're on 98FM. How are you, Ellie?
Hi, I'm good.
Ellie, you were badly bullied between the ages of 14 and 17.
Yeah.
This is a really shocking part of your story. You became pregnant at 16.
Yeah.
And one of your bullies attacked you.
Yeah.
And what happened?
So it started off, this girl had a problem with me, but we managed to sort it out a couple of weeks beforehand. And whatever happened, we were messing around. We thought we were shouting at one of our friends. It wasn't our friend. She came back over to us and brought her cousins with her. And we ended up just laughing and having a talk, and she was standing across from me, and within seconds she was over. She kicked me in the stomach and hopped away from me, and instantly I said, I'm pregnant. And her sister said, oh, so it's true. And there was a guard across the road, and I was brought over to him, and my brother ran from home into town to find me, and the guard said I should go to the hospital. So I went out to the hospital and had to do a couple of pregnancy tests, and then I eventually got a scan done, and the baby had no heartbeat. And because I was so early, they said maybe it was because I was early and to hold on, so I was rescheduled again for another appointment. And that was a Sunday, and the following Saturday I started bleeding and was brought to the hospital again. And they said, yeah, you're probably going to be miscarrying shortly, and we'll bring you in a couple of days and we'll confirm. So I was told, I had got to the guards over it and was pressing charges against her for what she'd done. And they said that, to keep quiet about it, don't talk about it to anybody because they're going to try and get it done through the guards. So that girl was able to go around and tell everybody that I was lying and that, I was never pregnant, she never kicked me. I was just spreading rumours and all this kind of stuff. And then there was a website called 98FM.
I remember it. I remember how lethal it was, yeah.
Yeah, so I was 16 years old and all my friends were on it, so I joined it too. And I started getting messages like, I'm going to do worse to you than she did. I'm going to fake a pregnancy just like you did. All this horrible stuff. So I went to the guards about it because I knew it was something to do with what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically told me to delete the thing. It was my own fault because I had a website that was allowing anonymous messages come to me. So they told me to delete it. And in the meantime, my mother had lung cancer and died. And I was finding it very, very hard. I was drinking to try and get through it. The girl would follow me around town and tell me, "Oh, I'm your baby killer. I'm really glad I did what I did." And it's all, just taunting me all the time. And my mum died.
How long did this go on for?
Oh, if she sees me now, she'll still say stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
And what age are you now?
I'm 24.
And you still see this girl, and this girl still makes smart comments at you.
Oh, yeah.
And you believe that this woman was responsible for you losing your baby?
Well, if it wasn't, it's an amazing coincidence that it happened so quick. But the guards said that because I was so early that maybe a kick wouldn't have affected the baby. And they didn't want to put that kind of a responsibility on a girl so young. She was a year older than me. And they didn't want to put a responsibility of what had happened on her.
But you do believe it was her fault? You do believe that it was that kick from her that led to you losing your baby?
Yeah, I do. I strongly believe it. I can't prove it, but I strongly believe it.
Stay there for a second, Ellie. 6797 981 is our telephone number. You can text or WhatsApp the programme 0877 98 98 98. John, you're on 98 FM. How are you, John?
How are you doing, Adrian?
John, I have to say, over this past weekend and even today, I can see how this really touches a raw nerve with an awful lot of people. And your point on this is people don't know the pain of bullying until you see your 10-year-old crying because of it.
No. My daughter was 9 when it first started to happen, and she'd be out on the road playing, and the next door neighbour, the girl, from day one when we knew her, just constantly picked on her. And she'd get all the other girls on the roads to gang up and make her do things like, and you'd stop her from crossing from one side of the road to the other. And whenever she got out to play with someone, she'd call the other girls over, tell them that she was speaking about her, and then get them all to turn on her. So after a while, I went into the house, spoke to the mother. The mother called the daughter, and she said, "Well, my daughter said she didn't say that, but just shut the door in his face." And that was it. She just wouldn't accept our daughter was a bully.
Sorry, John, I'm going to have to get the lad to string you back because your mobile is really bad. It's very difficult to hear you, so I'm going to get the lad to string you straight back if you don't mind. We'll take a very quick break while we're doing that. 6797 981 is our telephone number. Text or WhatsApp us 0877 98 98 98. And the question we're asking, and this is probably the most difficult question of all, what can be done to stop bullying? How do you get the message through to kids of 7, 8, 9, 10 or even teenagers that it is not a good thing? It is not a funny thing. It is something you should not do. Is enough being done to sort out the bullying crisis? Because when I hear people taking their lives because they're being bullied, that's a crisis. Now, John, just to come back to you, I hope we have you on a better line now.
Sorry, Adrian.
Yeah, that's much better. Yeah. So, go on, continue with your story about what was happening.
Yeah, it was basically, she kept bullying her for this has gone up on well over a year. So I called in the parents, and the mother's response was, "Well, my daughter said she didn't say anything and closed the door on my face." So I just bit the bullet and went back into the house. Now, I had to sit there for weeks on end and watch my daughter cry because she couldn't go out on the road because of this girl. And it was absolutely heartbreaking. I was near enough at the point where I was going to do something drastic just because my wife actually got me to hold back. But I was just so wound up to see her in such a state. I didn't know what else to do. Do you understand?
I do. I can.
You know,
Like I've said before, and like an awful lot of people say, when somebody sees their child being bullied, it brings out all sorts of emotions in a parent, and totally understandably.
Yeah. Now I'd see this girl the minute she'd see the car coming back down the road when I was picking my daughter up from school. She'd get all the girls to gather around. No problem to her whatsoever. She wasn't put off by the parents being there, and she'd stand outside the garden and constantly just give her the eyes, let that know that she was waiting on her issues to come out, you know? And it was just horrible, absolutely horrible to go through.
In terms of bullying, what do you believe can be done about it? What do you believe could be a solution, or is there ever going to be a solution? Will we always have kids who pick on kids who get picked on?
We'll always have, no matter what lies with parents, to be honest with you.
To educate their own children into... I mean, I have to say, one of my worst nightmares would have been my own kids being bullied when they were at school. One of my worst nightmares is that one of them would have been a bully when they were at school.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's...
You bring your kids up to learn respect, teach respect, and show them what it means to others, like, then I think to be fine, but I think it's a lack of judgment on the parents' behalf, not doing their job as they are growing up and skipping that stage of life, you know?
And, John, how's your daughter now?
She's okay. Like, sometimes she gets to go out and play with another girl or two, but the minute this sort of, the all flock around her because she's kind of the leader of the pack. But she'd leave my daughter out, so she'd have to come in then. And I just to see this pure sadness in her eyes, but she had to come in after all because of this girl. It makes me really angry.
I can understand how it would make you really angry. I really can.
No, like you'd never feel bad towards a kid, but I've never wanted to go out and scream or shout at kids so much in all my life, you know? It's horrible to see her having to come in and ask me why is it happening.
And it's such a difficult question to answer because it's such an open-ended question. Thanks, John, and I'm really sorry your mobile is really... I know you're in transit at the moment, so our apologies for the quality of the line with John. Joanne, your son was bullied all the way through school, so much so that he also wanted to die.
Yeah, that's very true, Adrian. It was just an absolute horrendous time as his mother to see your son crumble the way he did, and I had no control. I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit upset now because it's so raw. I just felt so helpless. I couldn't just wrap him up in cotton wool and take away the pain. It was indescribable pain.
So what age did this bullying start at?
It started when he was about 7. And now he is heading on 13 now and is gone into his first year in secondary school.
And is it continuing in secondary school, or is it a completely different school and completely different people?
At the moment, he seems to be okay. He is the sort of young lad that keeps everything very close to his chest. You would have to nearly kind of be at him all the time, say, are you okay? Are you sure? Is there nothing you're worried about? As I said, at the moment he seems to be okay, but I worry about him every single day. And he has other siblings, which I wouldn't worry about as much. It just terrifies me that every day he's going to come home, he's going to say something, and it's going to spark it all off again. And I just feel so helpless.
But during all the years that he was being bullied in primary school, you say you felt helpless, but was there anything you did or could do?
Well, I was into the school on numerous occasions, and I was told that, well, you know, these things do happen. Kids do, words do get passed, and we haven't really seen that going on in the school, and we'll keep an eye on it. And it actually got to the stage where I actually felt I was going in talking to a brick wall. I was coming home then and seeing the way he was, and I thought, I can't keep going on like this. I can't keep watching my son crumble, basically right in front of me. So it got to the stage where I started writing letters. I said to myself, if I go any further, and to anyone else, like in Board of Education, it was all hearsay. You said this, they said that. And I went to his class teachers, and then I go to the principal, and the principal will back up his teachers and say, oh, I can't see now they saying that. Where they were taking his pencils or his rulers or his rubbers, and I had said to him, look, just put your name on your stuff. And if he had said to the teacher, look, they have my rubber, it has my name on it, they say, no, that was never your rubber, Nathan. You just put your name on that, and now you're lying. So sometimes he didn't trust a lot of the teachers because he was afraid that, oh well, they're not believing what I'm telling them. So why should I say anything? And a lot of times, most of it kind of went unheard. So I just said, right, what do I do from here on in? So I started writing letters then, and basically putting it out that under no certain terms was I accepting their school policy on bullying, that this cannot go on, that my son cannot keep feeling like he didn't want to go to school, that if he threw himself down the stairs or out the window and broke his 2 legs, that he wouldn't have to go to school, or being terrified of waking up the next morning, was he actually still going to be alive in his bedroom. And I said, I'll go to the Board of Education. I said, I'll go to the radio. I said, I will go wherever I need to go to be heard. And it wasn't until I started writing letters to the principal that actually it was being taken note of.
Did you ever consider taking him out of school, Joanne? Or taking him out of that school?
He had begged and begged and begged and begged, Adrian. And I had said to him, at that point when he started begging, he kind of only had 2 years left. And I had said, realistically, he has that very trusting nature. And I said, and the fact that he didn't trust a lot of people, like the teachers and the staff and stuff like that, that for him it was it could happen in another school. Do you understand? And it was like, unfortunately, like, he wasn't speaking up. Like, he'd get really, really angry, and he'd come home really, really angry. And I said, if they don't know, they are. So,
sorry, in answer to my question, Joanne, did you look at or contemplate taking him out of the school?
Oh, definitely.
And much knowledge, I don't agree that the kids who are bullied are the ones that should have to move out of the school. I think that's completely wrong. It should be the other way around. I wonder how you could look at him walking out the door every day and not completely fall apart, knowing that you were sending him back to that school for more shit. Oh,
unbelievable. There was mornings I would cry bringing him to school, and I'd say to him, are you okay? Are you okay? To be quite honest, I was like, do you even want to go today? And he would say, no, Mum, I'll be fine today. And I had to reckon, like, I was envious in the way of his strength in some ways, that he didn't want them getting the better of him. And he didn't want them to see that he were getting the better of him. But in some ways he was. So yes, I contemplated taking him out of the school. Then he had said, no, it'll be fine. It's eased off, and then it is picked back up again. It got to the stage then where he was in the yard one day, and the school actually rang me to come to the school. And I thought, okay, what's after happening? Basically they had a gang of them, of about 30 kids, had surrounded him in the yard.
Oh my God.
And he was right in the middle of it all. And luckily enough, they caught it all on CCTV. And basically I just took him home straight away. And like that, I let him stay at home then for a couple of days because it had a fierce impact on him. He got very closed down. He went very dark, Adrian, where I thought, am I ever going to be able to pull him out of this? Is this ever going to go away? Is it ever going to get better? What can I do? As a parent, I just felt so helpless. Because
Stay there for 1 second, because Liz, you wanted to say something to Joanne here.
I just kind of reiterating what you just said. Like, I don't understand how she said it started at 7 and he's now gone into secondary school. But how do you leave your child in a school for 5 years where he doesn't feel safe or believed when, like, he's being bullied, and you go to the school and the teacher doesn't believe you, and basically telling your child outright that they're lying and all. How do you put them through that then? Are you not only adding to the stress he's under? Do you know what I mean by keeping him in that school?
Oh, I totally hear what you're saying. But when I started at 7, it was at the start he pushed me, and then I pushed him back, and it was not that it wasn't important, but at that point, my son, in some ways, if he was pushed, he was pushing back.
Yeah, well, bias being bias, and I understand that, but if he's coming home telling you... I know, but if it escalates to where he's kind of getting to the point, if you're so emotional that you're bringing him to school and you're upset by the thought of what he might go through, how do you only contemplate moving him in case it happens at another school? I mean, you can't do that either. You know, I mean, if he's only at the start in secondary, and please God he doesn't go through because it's awful. I've been bullied. I was bullied myself. It is awful. But if you're sending them to a secondary school now, and if it happens down the line, are you just going to tell him to put up and shut up until he does his leaving?
Oh, no. I will pull him out the very next day. It didn't actually come to light that it was so bad until it was near the end of his 4th class.
Yeah, but you still send him there for 2 years. Don't get me wrong, I'm not, as I said, that bullying's right. I don't believe in it. I think it's disgusting, but I just...
And isn't that exactly the point?
If my child came to me in 4th class saying, I don't want to be at that school anymore, and you say, oh, well, do you know what, you've only 2 years left, we'll cope with it for the next 2 years.
Well, see, it was kind of like the end of the term in 4th class when it was come to light that he had said to me about him being picked on, and I said, well, look, we'll go back into 5th class and we'll see what happens. Because they were changing the classrooms around, different kids were coming in, different kids were going back out, and I said, look, we'll go into 5th class, we'll see how your 5th class goes. It started okay. As the months went on, it seemed to get really bad, and like that, I looked into other schools. We had signed him up for other schools. He had said to me, no, I want to stay now. I don't want to let them win. If I leave, I'm letting them win. And I said, I want to do whatever I can for what's best for you. And
did he ever say he wanted to leave?
He had numerous times he said he wanted to leave. That was it. It was fine. That's when I decided, right, okay, I will go. I'll look into other schools. We'll get you enrolled in a different school. And then it was things, he said to me, things seemed to have calmed down. I want to stay. He'd made other friends that he didn't want to leave. And it got to the stage where I actually didn't know what to do for him, because he wants to leave, then he didn't want to leave, but he was still going through a horrible time.
But did you leave that decision up to him?
No. I personally, I wanted him to leave. Then I thought, if I'm forcing him out and pushing him into another school, is he going to then resent me then for taking him away from his friends? But as a mother, I want to take him out. I want to protect him.
All right, stay there for 1 second. 6797 981 is our telephone number. You can text or WhatsApp the programme 0877 98 98 98. 0877 98 98 98. This is just a follow-on to what we spoke about last week on the programme. Tara, you're on 98FM. Hiya, Tara.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you, Tara. We were talking with a lady on Friday about her daughter who took her own life. You're a young woman who was also severely bullied.
Yeah, no, I was. It started out when I went into secondary school. I went to a different secondary school than all my friends. So my primary school was great, had great friends. Went to secondary school and I was seen as the new girl. I got bullied kind of from day one. That it, kind of like, little bits and pieces that like, oh, you're the new girl, what are you doing? Blah, blah. So I kind of said it to my mum that I don't think I'm fitting in. My mum was like, look, just go. You're only after starting, you'll make new friends. I was like, right, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Continued on, and it got to the stage then I joined the school camogie team, the school basketball team, things I would have done in my primary school. And it started then that I was purposely tackled. I would have been hit with the camogie sticks or hurled. It got to the stage that like people who I thought were my friends weren't. And one Friday they actually threw me out in front of a moving car.
Wow.
Lucky enough the car swerved, so I was okay. It got so bad that when I tried to overdose, my mum found me maybe half an hour after, and she said she knew herself that usually what happened was it was like a cry for help. My mum said she found all the empty sachets of tablets in the kitchen that I had left, and she knew herself that this was getting out of control. So she came in, got me to a hospital, and that was fine. She went in and spoke to the school, and the school vice principal at the time basically said that there's nothing they can do, that the parents of this one particular girl's dad was funding the school so much money that they didn't want to lose that, and that the only solution they could think of was to take me out of the school.
And did they?
My mum and dad took me out of the school, but they fought against it. Like my principal himself would have been friends with my family, and he fought and fought and fought to try get this girl removed, but it just, because there was so much funding from him, they wouldn't remove her. So I moved.
When you did move schools, did it help?
It didn't, not really. I was then gonna go back with oh God, here's a new girl. So it kind of constantly played on my mind the whole time that I ended up in a psychiatric unit and with an eating disorder.
So we were talking with a young woman, the mother of a young woman who actually did eventually, after an attempt a couple of years back, did eventually take her life. Yeah. You were at that low point yourself. How are you now? What age are you now?
I'm 29 this year.
You're 29, but it sounds to me, even just a mention of this conversation, and it still touches a raw nerve with you.
It does. Actually, my partner's mom called me a bully one day, like another long story, and that just triggered everything. I was at my low point. It got to the stage that I had to ask my mum to come over and mind my child because I couldn't get out of bed. Like, even talking now, I'm shaking. I just don't know how anyone can bully. It's just awful. And for any child...
The bizarre part of this conversation is, while I've hit on a raw nerve with a lot of people in like yourself in having this conversation, there are a lot of people listening to us right now who were bullies themselves, who, when they were younger, picked on kids in school and made their life a misery. Those same people are listening to us now, and I hope those same people are filled with regret and remorse for what they did, because when they hear stories like yours, Tara, about how you ended up in hospital with severe eating disorders, about how you tried to take an overdose, and when they hear stories like that lady's story last week, they have to be filled with remorse, because or else they're still bullying people.
Well, I really hope so, because they don't want to be that parent that has to try fight for their child's life, or who wants to, who won't wake up one morning and their child's not there. Like, it's not a nice feeling. And again, some people, maybe that's what they've learned at home, and that's what they've always said, that bullies have learned from other bullies. Like, if they've gone through, have their own problems, or they bully because they're jealous and stuff. I don't know. Like, to me, people that bullied me would have had a great home life. So I don't know. It's such...
But like I said, I hope this conversation is food for thought for people who were bullies when they were younger, or even bullies to this day. Let me just bring in one last call, and I sincerely apologise to both Elizabeth and Anna. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have time to take your calls, because we're literally swamped with calls on this. Suzanne,
hi, Adrian.
You actually got the guards involved, and it actually helped.
Do you know something, Adrian? This is the first time I've ever really rang you. But you've done this topic a good few times, and a good few times I thought, I'll ring him, I won't. But I was devastated on Friday. I was absolutely devastated listening to that woman. So I'm glad you did it today. And I did ring the guards. And I was telling Katie there, my two boys were a year apart in age, but 2 years apart in the class. And the older boy was being bullied to the point where You know, it was the Instagram, kill yourself, the girls in the class are laughing at you. And one of the days, the school rang me and said, would you come up, the younger fellas, after falling in the yard? And I said, yeah, I'll come up with a clean uniform. I only lived 2 minutes from the school. When I got there, Adrian, he was wax. And this young fella had a big high colour in his face, he was wax. So I didn't realise I had to change the shoes and everything. Flew home, got the shoes, flew back. And something said to me that day, stand here and wait for him to change his clothes. And I pulled the headmaster and I said to him, what went on here? And he said to me, I don't know. So I said back to him, your name is over that door, not mine. And if you don't know what went on here today, and if I have to deal with this once more, because I was black in the face going in there, you're going to be sorry, not me. So the two boys come home from school, and as I said, the older boy is very, very clever, and he said to me, Mom, they said you were in the... I'm shaking telling you this, Adrian. And my youngster's nearly 15 now. And he said to me, Mom, they said you were in the school because... I don't want to name their names. The younger boy was supposed to say he wanted to rape the teacher.
Good God.
Adrian, I nearly collapsed. I rang my mum and I said, Mum, what am I going to do? And she says to me, get straight on to the police station. So I had a cousin and she was one of these that knows the law off the top of her head. And I rang the police station and I said, I'm just looking for advice. And the vanguard said to me, you did the right thing. She said, we'll deal with this for you. So I told her the whole shooting, Annie. I was weeks and months going into the school, writing letters.
I'm really sorry to cut across you, Suzanne, because I'm just out of time. But what did they do in the end, or what happened in the end?
So what happened in the end was the vanguard said to me, we're going to bring him in here and we're going to question him. Mm-hmm. And the bottom line is this, Adrian, and people don't realise, kids, if you know the law, you're laughing. If you don't, you're screwed. Kids as old as 12 are legally bound, are legally responsible for their own behaviour. Them kids were 12 who were doing that to my boys, and they were legally held responsible.
Yeah, they're
for
criminally responsible. Yeah,
they were legally. So I'll never forget it, Adrian. The night my young fella was, you know, this ceremony of life for the confirmation.
Yeah,
my young fella was in the church at 7 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, the bully, the ringleader, was in the police station getting a form of caution to keep away from him. So something can be done. And
did that work in the end? Now, and yes, I'm also mindful of the fact that what you said is right. The age of criminal responsibility is 12.
Yes.
Under that age, maybe the guards isn't the course of action. But in your case, it did help. It definitely helped.
It absolutely. And now, Adrian, I live in a rural place like you. I won't say where, but it isolated me. Big time.
I can imagine, yeah.
And I didn't care, Adrian, because I spent years trying to have them too, and I didn't care. And I thought, I'm not sending them up there for anyone's amusement. They were my boys, and the law was going to protect them. And I made damn sure it did.
I'm delighted to hear that. And maybe that's something that more parents should consider, particularly when you're talking about kids who are over the age of 12. Suzanne, I'm sorry to cut across you, but thanks very much.
No problem, Adrian. Look, I was just happy to be able to get that message out this morning.
And thanks for finally picking up the phone to say hello.
Yes, okay.
Good to talk to you, Suzanne.
Thanks Adrian. Thanks a million.
And like I said, my apologies to the calls we haven't managed to get to. We really have touched on a really raw nerve for an awful lot of people with this. And as I said on Friday, and I'll say it again, bullying has to stop before more lives are lost. And this is a campaign that we're going to get involved in over the next while. We're not going to let this one go. This is 98FM's Dublin Talks.
98FM. This is 98FM's Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy.
Weekdays from 10 a.m. on 98.